This is a presentation of the St. Catherine University Libraries, and I'm Kathy Rickert. This presentation will introduce you to academic plagiarism, since understanding exactly what constitutes plagiarism is a first step in avoiding it. Other tutorials will help you learn how to cite and describe writing techniques for avoiding plagiarism. The term plagiarism is actually a legal concept, and the definition is shown here. It refers to the act of copying or using the words or ideas of another as if they were one's own. Plagiarism applies to published or unpublished works, materials found in print or online, videos, websites, and even to papers you may have written yourself in the past. When we discuss plagiarism, we can think in terms of unintentional and intentional plagiarism. I'm not here to discuss intentional plagiarism at any length, which is actually a form of cheating. Examples of intentional plagiarism include handing in a paper written by someone else, copying and pasting from the internet, or using the ideas and words of someone else without giving credit. No, I believe that most students don't intend to plagiarize, but they just haven't yet learned what it means to plagiarize and how to avoid it. Examples of unintentional plagiarism are shown here. They may include using info from a source without citing it, paraphrasing poorly or too close to the source, giving a quote that is not exactly the same as the source, or misrepresenting a source or using it out of context. Take a few seconds to think about plagiarism and ask yourself, why might a student plagiarize? I've listed a few of my own thoughts here. They include running short on time and working under pressure. When that happens, we sometimes tend to get careless. Not understanding an original source. In order to accurately paraphrase information in your own words, you have to thoroughly understand it first. Chances are you can't think of a way to say something better than a source. If you think you can't paraphrase some information in your own words, it's best to quote and be sure to cite the source. Finally, it's possible a student doesn't think anyone will know or care about a small incident of plagiarism. But the truth is, as I've said earlier, plagiarism is cheating, and no one wants that. Every student at St. Kate's is held to the university's academic integrity policy. In addition, your own program or department may have a plagiarism policy, so be sure you know what it says and where to find it. The best way to avoid unintentional plagiarism is to recognize when to cite sources in the papers you write. Remember that you must give credit in the text whenever you paraphrase or quote any of these in your writing, the ideas, opinions, or theories of another author. Facts, statistics, graphs, drawings, and so on from information sources. Quotations or paraphrases of the written or spoken words of another, and any other information from one of your sources that cannot be considered common knowledge. Now, common knowledge is a term that refers to information that is generally known by your audience and is found in numerous sources. This type of information does not require a citation. Another library tutorial will tell you more about identifying common knowledge. I have several suggestions about how plagiarism can be avoided. Most importantly, cite your sources carefully and properly. Whether you use MLA, APA, Cite Chicago, or another citation style, learn how to use it and how to cite properly. Use authoritative sources to verify the citation styles, such as the manual, our library's website, or the Purdue OWL website. Second, plagiarism can be avoided by correctly representing sources by using writing techniques such as paraphrasing, which involves putting what you have read into your own words, summarizing, in which you give a brief overview of the source, or quoting, which is using the exact words of a source enclosed in quotation marks. And remember, each of these writing techniques requires an in-text citation documenting the source of the information and usually including an entry on the list of references at the end of the paper. Finally, plagiarism can be avoided by taking your time and by carefully keeping track of your sources. Hints for doing this include allowing yourself ample time for researching, writing, and rewriting. Keeping copies of your sources so you can refer back to them. You might also consider using RefWorks or another tool to organize your sources and to generate formatted reference lists of your sources. Learning about plagiarism is the first step in avoiding it. For more on this topic, please view other library tutorials or speak with a librarian.